Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello everyone and welcome along to our latest episode of the RTÉ GAA Podcast. We are looking ahead to round 5 of the Allianz Football League. Peter Canavan joins myself and Rory this week. How are you getting on, Peter?
All good, Jacqui. Thank you. How are you, Rory?
Good, Peter. Good to see you.
Looking forward to it. Our live game on Saturday is Dublin against Derry. No bigger one to start with, Peter. And I feel like maybe this is the ultimate test for Mickey Hart and his journey with this Derry team. What do you think?
Well, the ultimate test will come further down the line.
Yeah.
But in terms of his National League, this, by far their biggest test. And it's the two best teams in the country playing at the minute. And they're playing really strong football. They're not top of the table by chance. Dublin's performance last weekend, the best that I would say, even counting the championship last year, it was right up there. The quality of their football, I felt, was as good, and the players, their movement has been as good as I've seen a number of those players going for a few years. So from a Dublin point of view, that's very exciting. And again, Derry have maintained their form. Now, a lot of people, after Galway's game were saying, well, Derry didn't play that well, but they still went down to Salt Hill and scored 3-10. So if that's not playing well, then God knows what we can expect whenever they do play well. I was also at the game last year in Celtic Park, Derry and Dublin, and it was packed. There was a brilliant atmosphere in Celtic Park back then, and it's going to be the exact same, no different this Saturday. So brilliant spectacle for those lucky enough to be at it. There'll be a really good atmosphere and a really good buzz about it. And the way the two teams are going, I can't see them disappointing. They're both, in terms of football, when they're getting the ball, they want to go forward, and they want to go forward at pace. Wee bit more kick passing and introduced in the Dublin game now than we've seen for a while. But it's really well set up and should be a brilliant game.
Yeah, I expect this to be an absolute cracker, Rory.
I think Peter made mention of the fact that there was a raucous crowd last year, and by all accounts it's heading for a sellout, because the Dubs always travel in big numbers as well. In fairness to them, they have a fantastic following, probably outside of maybe Armagh, have potentially the largest away travel that they make the weekend of it. They'll all go up to Derry, they'll enjoy themselves. Played twice last year, didn't meet in the championship obviously, but played twice. And Peter mentions about that game in Celtic Park. It's literally 12 months ago to the very day, the 5th of March 23, and had a look at it there last night. It was very interesting. This is obviously back in the days of Rory Gallagher was still the manager at that time, and they played really poorly. They stood off Dublin in that first half. They went in at half time, I think 8-2 or 8-3 down. And they just gave Dublin the initiative. Dublin to me are a bit like Man City in that they'll bore you to death with their unbelievable ball retention. And if you stand off, that's exactly what they'll do. In the second half, they were much more proactive, much more in their face, and went after Dublin, and they pushed right up, which again probably shows the tactical flexibility within the Derry game. I'd expect to see that from the start on Saturday night, because just the nature of the form and the momentum that they're carrying into the game. But Dublin are also bringing incredible form and incredible momentum. So, I think it's poised perfectly. Absolutely, the two form teams in the country. Great that it's on live TV, 5 o'clock on RTÉ. And really, really now looking forward to it. Matchups are going to be absolutely so interesting. I mean, Rodgers will probably take Brian Fenton. That seemed to be the case last year. Will Chrissy McCaig potentially on Conor O'Callaghan? Who picks up Shane McGuigan at the other end? Would anybody have picked Merchant to take David Clifford the last day? Nobody would have had that down. And the interesting thing about that, Jacqui, I have a sneaky suspicion, because I know you'd have a small little bit of an inclination into the way the Dublin mindset is, being involved in football. I would not be one bit surprised if Owen Merchant approached Desi to say, I want Clifford. Can I have Cliff? Give me Clifford, you know? And I wouldn't be surprised, barring injury, because he did pick up a knock. If he's fit, I expect Merchant to pick up Shane McGuigan. So you've got fantastic matchups, both ends of the field, at midfield, raucous atmosphere, big crowd, the two form teams. We couldn't ask for more.
Yeah. Peter, what do you think about those matchups? Because I think Conor Glass versus Brian Fenton as well, you throw that one into the mix. I think there could be an awful lot in terms of what we might even see later in the year of who's picking up who.
After the Merchant Clifford matchup last week, there's no point in trying to predict what Dublin are going to do. Merchant could go on McGuigan, but there are maybe more mobile, faster, smaller forwards than Shane McGuigan that Merchant might be more particularly suited to, but doesn't matter to him. He'll pick up whoever he gets, and he'll do a good job. Yeah, the big one for me in this clash on Saturday night is the Glass Fenton one, because I think you have two of the best midfielders in the country, without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, in my opinion. They're so influential in terms of when Brian Fenton plays well. He played his best football last weekend, and Dublin played their best football that they played for a long time. Likewise with Glenn, whenever Conor Glass performs, he's the leader of that Glen outfit, and very similar with Derry. So without doubt, it'd be great to see them going head to head. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't. Maybe the managers might have other men lined up to do a job on them. But if they do go head to head, then it's worth paying the entrance fee to watch those two boys go at it. That'll be fascinating.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And look, for Derry as well, I think, Rory, if they win this weekend, they're on 10 points, probably in a league final, which obviously would have been in the aim at the start of the year. It just allows Mickey Hart to maybe give a rest in those last remaining weeks that he hasn't been able to afford his players in the last couple of weeks.
And to be fair, I mean, some of the criticisms, and look, maybe unjust on my part, in terms of some people might have felt that they didn't have a deep enough panel. Maybe they were, going a little bit too full throttle at this time of the year, that it might come back to haunt them. But they've brought in a couple of younger players. They've definitely he's given a lot more players game time than Rory Gallagher ever did. I mean, that Donncha Gilmore came on the last day. The first thing he does is kick the ball over the bar. So they have got, they're coming off the back of some very good minor teams. They won the minor All-Ireland last year. Obviously, they're a bit young to be thrown straight in from that level, but you have a situation there now where he's built a much bigger panel than I think what Derry have had in the past. I suppose what will rankle with them, they were very flat in the Division 2 league final. Does that really matter a whole pile? No, it was a portent of the Con O'Callaghan that we saw again the last day, because I thought Con ran riot, but obviously they lost. I think Chrissy McCaig went down with injury just before on the week of that, so they didn't have him there. So like that obviously weakened their full back line to a certain, and was McAvoy was also out that week. I can't remember, but I think, look, this, because championship is still far away, chances of these two teams meeting each other in a major knockout game isn't going to happen for quite a while. I think this will approach championship fervour, and it's like it's a quality game to look forward to this weekend. Without a doubt, the best game in Division 1 to savour.
Yeah, definitely. The other teams in the mix, Peter, when you look kind of down the line, so let's say Kerry Tyrone, for instance, there's a lot of, outside of Derry, you've got 7 teams separated by 2 points. So take Kerry Tyrone, for instance. One of them wins and gets to 6 points. Suddenly, they could potentially be looking at a league final. It's wild what's happening below Derry.
Well, those 6 teams below them, 7 teams, I don't think Dublin are seriously thinking about relegation, but all the other teams are. They're not necessarily thinking, can we make the top 2? It's, can we avoid the bottom 2? Right. And don't be surprised to see Monaghan win this weekend. Don't be surprised to see Roscommon win this weekend. That would leave Galway and Mayo sitting at the very bottom of Division 1, along with the losers of Tyrone and Kerry.
Yeah.
So in the space of one weekend, it can leave a massive difference regarding your perception of whether you're going to figure as in the National League final, or whether you're really concerned about getting dropped. So that's the beauty of Division 1. It's so finely balanced. So many of the games last weekend, there's only a point or two in them. Could have went either way. And this weekend, I would expect something very similar, all close games with a lot to play for.
Talk to me about Kerry Tyrone then, Peter. What is it about this rivalry? How much did you enjoy going to battle with the Kerry lads? Because it always seemed to me you brought the best out in each other.
Well, it was a healthy rivalry brought about due to the respect that we had for Kerry, because for years and years, anytime Tyrone faced Kerry, when I was a youngster growing up, it was to see them getting beat and see them getting well beat. One of the greatest Kerry teams, of all time. So there's a great respect there for all Kerry teams in Tyrone, and the fact that we were lucky enough to compete at All-Ireland final, All-Ireland semi-final stages. We were glad to be sharing the stage with them. And thankfully, over a short enough period, we had the better of them. But since that, as things have got back to the way they used to be, and
that's for everyone, Peter. maybe except Dublin.
But look, this weekend's game, if we had a choice, we would have preferred to see Kerry give Dublin a good walloping last weekend, and Kerry content with their lot. As it is, I think that will sting them into action, and the Tyrone players better be on their guard. I'm not too sure what's happening regarding, there's a few injuries in Kerry, but there's definitely a few injuries in Tyrone, and it's not the place to be going down. Killarney's not the place to be going down with a lot of debutants in their first year. So, yeah, brilliant second half against Mayo. If we're going to be competitive against Kerry, we need to see that second half replicated throughout the game. Otherwise, it could be a long enough afternoon for Tyrone supporters.
The difficulty is, Rory, it's very rare you see Kerry getting beaten by 10 points by anybody, particularly against the Dubs, given that they've been so close. If you don't get a reaction from them, suddenly then you are worried about them. I would expect them to come absolutely out fighting this weekend.
Oh, yeah. I heard Paul Flynn make a point, which I don't think is an unreasonable one, where he said he watched the game a second time, and when he did, it didn't actually feel like a 10-point game when you watched it back. That a couple of little things, like Clifford had a couple of, one-on-one, blazed a shot over, another one went wide at a time when the game was kind of in the mix a small bit. But Dublin, I still felt were a good bit better over the whole 70 minutes. I mean, the first 20 Dublin were electric. I mean, what was the score at half time? And they just, everything they touched turned to gold. Mm-hmm. I think the interesting thing from a Kerry perspective this weekend will be team selection, because if you do get a trimming, generally the first reaction ordinarily would be maybe to drop 4 or 5. But that wasn't too far away from Kerry's first choice 15, and maybe, was it 14 of the lads that started last year's All-Ireland final, certainly 13 anyway. So you can't kind of throw to
it's also it's almost too close to championship to be doing that role as well.
I'd suspect there might be an element of go out now and sort yourselves out after what happened. So it might be the case. I mean, we're only speculating because the teams won't be announced until tonight, but it might be the case from Jack O'Connor's perspective, where he just goes with the same 15 again and says it's up to you guys now to turn this around and basically wash that performance last Saturday night in Dublin from your system.
Yeah. Look, they've got a lot of answers to come up with very quickly to put themselves into the shake-up. What about that other game then, Peter? You mentioned Monaghan Galway, because to me, this one is so pivotal because of the position that both teams are in. Whoever wins, it puts the other one under serious pressure looking at relegation.
Absolutely. It sure does. And with Monaghan, after the brilliant start against Dublin, they looked electric that night down in Croke Park, and since that they've gone off the boil, surprisingly. Again, they have a lot of younger players playing. Maybe it's not that surprising, but the fact that played so well against Dublin, Vinny would have been wanting his troops to carry on in that vein of form. But the thing about Monaghan, you daren't write them off, and I think they will be bitterly disappointed. Not the fact that they just lost against Roscommon last week. They were well and truly beaten. It was 116 to 7 points. That was a hammer, and that's very unlike Monaghan in the National League. No matter who they play against, they're always competitive. So I would be amazed if there's not a sting in the tail here from then, if there's not a reaction, and if Finney doesn't get a reaction from his players. So Galway will be thinking that they went up to Tyrone and got a good victory in Healy Park, minus 5 or 6 of their best players. And when I say that, you can go through them, and I think that's fair to say they've been playing the last couple of games without their best players: Shane Walsh, Damien Comer, Killian McDade, Matthew Tierney, Liam Silk. I've left somebody else out, but those
Paul
are
Conroy
all,
as well.
Paul Conroy. They're the best players, and they're more than competitive. So I think Park will be happy that yes, they're competing without those key players. But I've a sneaking suspicion that Monaghan are going to be focusing, really targeting this game for 2 points. And with Galway minus those players, I think they have a chance to do that. So I'll be surprised if that doesn't end up in 2 points for Monaghan.
Yeah, I wonder how vulnerable Galway are without those players, Rory. I mean, you take those players out of any team and you're struggling, but they're struggling to score as well. I think they're averaging about 11 points a game. You know, like they haven't been firing. And it's understandable given what he's missing, but there's lots of other teams in positions with injuries. If they don't sort this out quickly, they will be staring down that trapdoor.
I would have felt, though, Galway should have enough depth to cope with it. Now, I know the calibre and the quality of the player that they're missing and the leadership that a lot of those guys, I mean, look, it's Damien Comer and Paul Conroy's team, effectively. And when you take the two of them out of it, particularly Shane Walsh, less so for me, but certainly Comer and Conroy, I think, are just pivotal to everything about Galway. But they should have enough. Galway, you know, like they've had a very good track record at underage level, no different to some other counties that we won't even talk about. But they should have had enough depth to be able to deal with these types of injuries. I just wonder, they've like bar the Connacht. I mean, they got into the league final last year, lost it. They were in the All-Ireland final the year before, lost it. They have suffered quite a few morale sapping blows over the last number of years, and that makes you slightly war weary, and that is a big test in winter football. I wouldn't be as concerned with Galway once we get into the more benign weather conditions and they get players back. I still think they'll have a good championship, but they'll have it all to do on Sunday. The one benefit for them is the amount of goals that Monaghan seem to be conceding. I think Monaghan have conceded 8 goals, which is, you know, that's very unlike Monaghan to be that leaky at the back. That's absolutely something that they're going to need to try and shore up. But again, looking back to last year, like again, this fixture is mirror image to exactly this time last year, the 5th of March 2023, and Galway won the game in Pearse Stadium. But who finished top scorer for Monaghan that day, Jacqui?
Oh, go on. Ryan O'Toole or somebody.
Rory Beggan.
Wow.
Rory Beggan was top scorer for Monaghan, and Roy Beggan's not there. Just that, again, that little bit of a weapon that you have from long distance and long range frees. It's just another little thing that Monaghan don't have this time around. They're more dependent on getting scores further up the field, which again, you know, look, they don't have the kind of pick that a lot of the other Division 1 teams will have, and that definitely hampers their ambitions. But they're at home. There'll be a big crowd. I think this game will be tight. This will be a really good contest. Wouldn't see anything more than a point or two in it either way, and very hard one to call.
Yeah.
Beggan's, sorry, Rory, but Beggan's absence also explains, you mentioned why they're conceding goals.
Didn't I?
His presence, his presence at the back is reassuring in itself, and they've conceded a few from high balls in. So, without a doubt, he's a massive loss, both in attack and in defence as well.
Yeah.
Just one last thing on that game before we move on, just to remember, Monaghan have Tyrone and Mayo to come next. From Galway's position, you lose this game, you've got Dublin and then Kerry to finish out. That is a tricky run in for Galway as well, bearing that in mind. Staying in the West then, Peter, it seems the struggles are not confined to just Galway, because Mayo and Roscommon also up and down. And I think there's probably a lot of focus on this one, given that what happened in the Connacht semi-final last year. They're potentially going to meet in the Connacht semi-final in a couple of weeks' time as well. And given the ambush by the Rossies last year, I think Kevin McStay would probably like to see something from his team at this point of the season, just to, I don't know, remind him that they have it, because it's definitely been patchy at times.
Well, Jacqui, they're not in a position to tiptoe around each other for this one because none of them will want to get relegated. So, again, crucial game. And many times have said that every round we come across a game and say,
that's why the league is so great.
But for me, the losers of this one certainly are going to be in difficulty. Compare the two teams on form, you'd say Roscommon's a form team coming into this, but you're not comparing like with like, because last week Mayo didn't put out their best 15, whereas Roscommon did put out their best, and they went out at all costs to try and defeat Monaghan at home. So for this one, you would expect that Cavan McStay is going to put out his best 15 from the start. And Roscommon likewise. I'm looking forward to this Roscommon team playing on Sunday, because again, you have some of the best forwards in the country playing for them. Dara Craig, Andy Smith, Ben O'Carroll, Donny Smith, all excellent players. And if they can secure enough possession around the middle third, they've got a brilliant chance of winning it. And that middle third, despite the fact that the Mayo full back line were receiving a bit of criticism last week, and that Dara and Darren McCurry were in great form, the game was won in the middle third with thrown secure dominance at the start of the second half, and it was ball after ball coming in. It was one-way traffic. So to me, that's the key area that Mayo will have to address on Sunday. Diarmuid O'Connor came off injured against Tyrone, massive loss around the middle. Matty Ruan was just back after a long absence, so he tired as the game went on. So it'll be crucial to see who Mayo put in there and around that middle sector, and the winning of that area of the game could well decide the overall outcome of this one.
If that's the key, would you plumb for an Aidan O'Shea type character and just get a ball winner in there for a while? Because, like, I think we've said on this podcast, it's probably Aidan O'Shea or Cillian O'Connor up front. Neither of them have actually scored from play, even in the league. Neither has Tommy Conroy. So maybe getting a ball winner out the field so that they can play might change the dynamic.
I don't know if Mayo have set on a firm game plan in that regard themselves, because O'Shea has been lining out at full forward, but not really staying in there. At times he does, and at times he drifts out because he can play out around that middle sector. Whereas if you look at Dublin, they're out and out target man. They want him to stay in there and they want to get the ball to him. Con. Likewise, David Clifford is not going to be playing as a third midfielder out around the pitch. He's obviously a strong target man. So Mayo would need to be come to a game plan and maybe stick to it. And I don't know if it's Aidan's own idea to move out to the pitch if he's not getting on the ball, or if it's team selection or a game plan to do that. He didn't even get any game time against Tyrone, so he may not be used at all this Sunday. So the Mayo management team have a bit of head scratching to do when it comes to the selection, and it'll be interesting to see where Aidan lines out, if at all.
Where do you see it all, Rory, in the melting pot there? Because I do think Davy Burke got a bit of a, I suppose, a response from his team, given his remarks as well last weekend. That performance was probably closer to the Roscommon we saw last year. So what are you expecting this weekend?
I think with Kevin is very astute. I've heard people mention before about how teams, may pull a handbrake up every now and again when it comes to the league, and how do you even do that? And I've heard ex-players say, oh, that's total rubbish. Now, the players themselves believe that, and that's absolutely fine, but managers can do it. And managers can do it through team selection pretty easily. And I think from Kevin's perspective, I'd say he's a fairly happy camp, because everybody is, like, he can have no player come to him and say, I didn't get a chance, or I didn't get game time, or I didn't get an opportunity to show you what I can do. He's given, I'd say, I don't know how many players, it must be over 30 at this stage. But he's not so they have, I'd say it's a pretty happy camp. I think they experimented in the previous two games because they had 4 points on the board. I think they probably now feel this weekend at home, local derby, potentially meeting them maybe once or twice in the championship. They knocked us out of Connacht last year, and obviously knocked the stuffing out of that league win, having to play them a week later. there'd be obviously a big local rivalry. You would imagine a huge crowd. I don't think there'll be any messing from Mayo this weekend, and they'll go out and they'll get that job done.
Let's finish off on Division 2 then. And look, I know we don't normally do this in reverse, Peter, but let's start at the bottom end of the table where the big relegation scrap between Cork and Kildare. This is the biggest game for both of these teams, possibly in their entire season, to turn everything around. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, well, the fact that Cork managed to go up to Adelaide, and at the end of this season, they could be recalling their trip to Adelaide. A lot of Cork supporters might know where it is because, but that was such a crucial win for them. And by and large, I was chatting to some of the Fermanagh lads, and they were so happy with the way they played. That hit so many of their own targets that they had set in terms of kick out and turnovers and their shooting accuracy and everything. And yet Cork hung in and finished the game really well to get the points. And that's a massive victory for Cork. And I think if they'd have lost that, could you imagine the morale in that camp on the way down the road? And so the difference a victory makes to morale, to looking forward to going to training on Tuesday, going with a spring in their step. They're now approaching this game in a completely different mindset than they had lost it. So with that in mind, I just think it's a really strong position for Cork to be in. Kildare needed to win last week against Kildare. Against Meath. Everybody said that was a do or die game. They performed much better than previously against Armagh, but they still didn't deliver, and they still didn't get over the line. And from that point of view, Kildare's under serious pressure. Their players are playing as if they're a team with a lot of pressure on their shoulders, and unless there's a serious turnaround there, I'd be amazed that Cork don't take the points here and continue their upward trend.
Yeah, and look, Peter's so right, Rory. Life can change incredibly quickly. I was chatting to some Cork supporters during the week, and they were actually quite encouraged by what they saw last weekend, not just with the win, but with the performance, that maybe things are starting to turn in the right direction for them. Another 2 points this weekend, and the outlook looks completely different.
Yes, absolutely. But have played well. Like I've seen now all 4 of the games, right? Sorry, all 3. And they've played well in patches, and they've been a little bit unlucky, and in certain times in games, like they fluffed their lines on a couple of goal chances, which could have changed the course of the game, particularly against Louth. And they had a really good chance. I think they hit the crossbar and hit the post against Cavan as well. Now, having said that, like I got a copy of Fermanagh were the better team for me the whole way through. But it's a good sign that they stuck in there. They gave themselves a chance for a smash and grab. And I'd imagine, as Peter mentioned, the long journey down from Fermanagh was a very, very happy one. Might have even cracked open a beer or two. And, that would give a bit of a spring to the step going into training. But the key thing for me, Jacqui, and I don't mean to say this in a very parochial sense, this is the biggest game across all 4 divisions this weekend for me. And the reason being, and it's not just because we're Cork, the loser will be relegated.
Yeah.
I am absolutely convinced whoever loses this game is going down. And that means you're facing basically a knockout match to maintain your Sam Maguire status. Now, obviously, you'll have your get out of jail card in your provincial championship, but from a Cork perspective, that involves going down to Killarney.
Yeah.
And obviously, we know it might be slightly easier to make a provincial final from a Kildare perspective, but whatever happens, you're going to Division 3 for 2025, whoever loses. And to that end, I think it's effectively a knockout game at this stage of the league already. So there's huge pressure on both teams. Will the mindset that Cork bring into it be slightly more positive in their approach because of the fact that they're going in with a win under their belt from last weekend? You would hope so from a Cork perspective, but everything's on the line here for this year's league campaign in this fixture for me.
Yeah, it's a huge game. At the other end of the table, the funny thing about, let's say, take the Cavan Meath game, Peter. These are 2 teams who maybe started out the year with idle hopes of promotion. And now, Cavan in particular, they put themselves a win this weekend and they're right in the mix. They've got a game against Armagh away next weekend, which effectively could end up being a knockout game for both of them. And I think they, to me, have been a real under-the-radar team, performing very, very well in Division 2. Not a lot said about them, but I think they've been going brilliant.
Yeah, I'd say some people might see that, Jacqui, in terms under the radar, but in Ulster, that Cavan team and the Cavan players would be very highly regarded. It's not that long ago that they won an Ulster Championship up here. And what you're seeing is the first year bounce, new manager going in, new setup, backroom team. I know Stevie O'Neill's involved with them as well, highly rated with as a forwards coach. So they're getting a kick out of them. They were very unfortunate that to lose against Donegal when Donegal went up there. So absolutely, I wouldn't be surprised if Cavan beat Meath, and I wouldn't be surprised either that they would end up beating Armagh. So they're very much a team on form. They play Monaghan in the Ulster Championship, and that would be a game that Cavan supporters will tell you, as long as they beat Monaghan, they don't care how the rest of the season goes. But yeah, I've been impressed. Raymond Gallagher has a really good setup around him. The players are working hard for him, and he's got quality up front. And Paddy Lynch, this
22 points.
years.
22 points across his first 3 games, Peter. That's some score. I know Freeze, but that is some scoring now.
It is, absolutely, and they're going forward. And if you look at the top teams, the Derrys and Dublin at the minute, Kerry, in fairness to them, when they get the ball, they want to go forward, and that seems to be with this Cavan team. There's not the ponderous going sidewards, back and forwards. They want to get the ball in there. They appear to be playing a more direct style of football, and as you say, their score lines that they've got in recent games would prove that.
I would have thought last year they could have won the Tailteann Cup, Rory. Like, starting out at it, I thought they were good enough to win it. They were definitely in the mix. They're a Sam Maguire team. I think promotion for them, if Raymond Gallagher was to achieve that, I'm sure he's got bigger goals beyond that, but it'd be an enormous leap forward for this team, even just cementing their place among the top tier.
Yeah, and I think they'd bring an awful lot to the table. I mean, I don't think there's be any doubt they won't. Like, Cavan are finishing either second or third. I'd fancy them to win this weekend.
Yeah,
I think they're at home. It's a derby game to a certain extent. I know they're in different provinces, but there should be a huge crowd. He has had a seamless transition from one management group to the next. He is absolutely getting the max out of what he has. I think they will. I think they'll beat Meath on Sunday, and that'll put a huge focus on that Armagh game, because effectively that's a kind of a semi-final at that stage. And like, they've been full value for all their wins so far. They're the team that have gotten closest outside of Armagh. I mean, there's a point between themselves and Donegal. Armagh drew with Donegal. To me, there's nothing between those 3 teams. And it's no surprise again that the 3 teams are Ulster teams. And look, it's been well proven Ulster football is the top. I mean, is it junior, intermediate, senior, and Sigerson club champions at the minute, isn't it? Across all the levels. The big one obviously is the senior inter-county, and there's every chance that could come this year depending on what happens. So look, I think to my mind, they have much better form. Having said that, one thing you will give Meath credit on, they have dug out a couple of good wins in their last 2 in derby fixtures themselves. Like the game against Louth shouldn't be underestimated, because Louth were going really well. Won that obviously last weekend. 9-8 down, but about 10 or 15 minutes to go, turned it around to win again. That'll give them a little bit of a boost in terms of their momentum, and it should make for a good contest, but I think Cavan will win.
Yeah. Well, look, let's not forget Meath are ahead of them too. Yeah, it is a derby.
It's a derby, isn't it? It is a derby, isn't it?
It is, surely. And there's Meath will relish going up to Breffni Park. And you're quite right. The last couple of games, Colin O'Rourke, in fairness to him, had said he hadn't, in terms of training, he didn't overdo things at Christmas. He let his Sigerson men go off to the universities and play. So he's only starting to really get his teeth into this team, and you can start to see that. So they're getting better with every game, and that'll be hard fought. But I agree with you, Rory. I still think Cavan's going to win that one.
Yeah. We'll finish off on the other two games then, Peter. Do you expect it to be straightforward enough? Wins for Armagh and Donegal, Fermanagh against Armagh and Donegal against Louth. Do you expect them to both win that game and keep their hunt for promotion on?
I do, to be honest. I think the way that Armagh are going now, they've impressed me in terms of they're playing more on the front foot. I was critical of them last year in the Championship. I thought they were too cagey, they were too defensive. But if you are following any of their games and who are their supporters talking about, or who's the media talking about after, it's Armagh forwards, it's Cian McConville, it's Andrew Murnan.
They've been great to watch.
It's Aisling Conady, who has come in.
Rian O'Neill coming back.
And Rian has come back. So they're talking about the forwards because Armagh's moving the ball quicker and getting the ball into the forwards. And I think they play a better brand of football when they do that. And they had a cracking game with Donegal. It was physical. There were a lot of mistakes made, a lot of turnovers, but it was played at a serious pace, I thought, and real good intensity. And that leaves them well. And for Monaghan, for them to bounce back, I know they were gutted after the Cork defeat, so it's a difficult assignment for them. And Armagh have got all the momentum, so I'll be surprised if they don't come out on top on that one.
Similar situation with Donegal and Louth, Rory. I think Donegal are just a cut above at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, I felt that they probably should have come out of the athletic grounds last week with the 2 points. I mean, they missed like Morgan's goal chance, unbelievable Rasper of a shot, but maybe place instead of power in that scenario. It'd be interesting to see what Dara would have done in that scenario. But and then obviously miss a penalty. So look, on such fine margins, and then they're sitting with a maximum full house of points. This is a step too far for Louth. Donegal at home. Donegal are a Division 1 team. And I think you're going to see that little bit of a gap on Sunday. Can't see anything other than a win there for them.
Yeah, agreed. All right, lads, we will leave it there. Looking forward to all of the games at the weekend. Peter, enjoy. Where are you off to at the weekend?
I'll be in Killarney, Jacqui.
Come here, Peter. Are you taking residency down in Kerry? Because I mean, every time we talk to you, you're either going to Tralee or Killarney. Have you a house down there?
Anywhere close to Cork will do me. Anywhere close to Cork.
Peter, that's a very political answer. I love it.
Fair play.
Well, look, enjoy it. Have fun. Rory, where are you going this weekend?
I probably, to be honest, given how many games are on, and there's loads of games on TV, I'm just going to sit and watch with the comfort of my own couch. Looking forward to all of it, particularly Dublin Derry Saturday night.
I'm looking forward to that one as well. I'll be watching that one too. Wherever you are watching, enjoy the weekend. Myself and Rory will be back on Monday to review all of the weekend's action. We'll talk to you then.
Lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over.